Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Monster Review, where we take a look at tech tips, and how-to videos. Today is a very exciting day. I am finally upgrading my computer that I use for video editing, not just for these videos that you see on YouTube, but also for, creative videos I do for family members, friends, and so on. Shout out to my wife, who made me a promise. She said if I got a promotion with my job, she will buy me whatever I wanted. This is what I chose: a computer. What is my daily driver? Well, this right here would be my daily driver. This is a early 2011 MacBook Pro. I bought it brand new in 2012. It's been a great computer even up till now. All my videos that you see on YouTube are edited on this machine, this old machine. I think this thing originally had Snow Leopard on it, and from Snow Leopard I had purchased Lion. For those of you who remember when Mac used to charge you to upgrade your OS, you know what I'm talking about. The Mac still edits video fine. It's showing its age tremendously. It's very slow. Rendering times are outrageous. And there's also this weird rainbow effect I get with certain pictures and videos. I'm guessing the Mac has a hard time exporting those images because they show up fine in Final Cut Pro and iMovie and all that, but when you export it, it's got a weird rainbow effect. Although I got a brand new computer, I'm still going to be using this. This is still going to be my traveling computer where I can, quickly transfer videos and photos that I take out on the field to this computer. So now you're probably wondering, well, what did you get? I got to tell you, I spent 2-3 years just going over different scenarios, testing different computers to see what would best fit my need. And I got to tell you, I kept jumping back and forth. So my original plan was to obviously upgrade the MacBook Pro to a new MacBook Pro computer. I started to give it some thought. I was like, hey, no, let's not do the MacBook Pro. Why don't we do Mac Pro? And I decided to change it to the Surface Pro 4. My wife graduated and I got her a Surface Pro 4 as her graduation present. So I got to play around with it with video editing, and it's not bad, but it's not great either. After switching it to the Surface Pro 4, then we saw the Surface Studio, looked at the Surface Studio, and then I saw the Razer, the 13-inch Razer, and I thought that would have been an awesome computer. But then, I realized something. I'm comfortable with Windows. I don't necessarily like Windows, which is odd too, because, I was a huge Windows 95 user. And then when Windows 98 got released, that was the best thing ever. And when XP came on the scene, man, I was excited. I used to spend countless hours just playing around with Windows XP on a computer that had no internet access. Getting into the Mac OS, one thing stands true, is that it's just reliable. I went back to the Mac Pro or the MacBook Pro. But then as time went on, a lot of us started to realize that Apple isn't exactly what it used to be. Like, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to spend $5,000 on a computer that may or may not last long, you know what I mean? I thought about maybe having the best of both worlds. Well, what's the best of both worlds with a Mac and PC? How do you get the best of both worlds? Well, it's one word: Hackintosh. And basically what a Hackintosh is, it's a PC built computer that has specs that play nicely with the Mac OS software. Now, it's not that simple. There's a lot of playing around that you have to do. For beginners, if you go to a website called Tony Mac, you'll be able to, see step-by-step guides on how to do this. Graphic cards, motherboards that play nicely with the Mac OS, and you can purchase these and use them for your PC build, and then you can install the Mac OS software on it. Granted that you already have some sort of Mac computer where you can get the software and then put it on a flash drive and install it on your PC build. That's ultimately what we have here. My new computer is going to be a Hackintosh. That's what I settled on. That's what I told my wife I wanted, and that's what she got me. She got me the components that I need to build a Hackintosh. All these components, like I said, I found on Tony Mac. So other than getting the OS onto the Hackintosh and using multi-beast for those NVIDIA drivers so my GTX 1070 could work on this Hackintosh, that's the only thing I need to play around with. Now this is all hypothetical. Computer building, you're bound to run into issues. Well, when you're building a Hackintosh, times that by like 100, because there's like 100 different things that can go wrong, and I'm expecting 100 different things to go wrong. But hey, I'm up for it. I'm excited. I want to do this, and yeah, I'm ready for whatever this Hackintosh throws at me. Another reason why I wanted to do a Hackintosh is because customization, man. You can do whatever you want. Graphic cards are swappable, RAM is everything is swappable, and it's easy to repair because you built it. So you can easily replace a part if you want to upgrade, or if a part fails, you can easily replace it. That is not the case with an Apple product. I know a lot of Apple fanboys who are my friends, family members, and you know, I want them to see my build and be like, what the hell is that? And then when they see it running macOS, you know, I want to see their mind just explode. And I definitely think that this build is going to do that, because the case I got is freaking awesome. So what are my choice of parts? Well, let's take a look. The hell is not working? Maybe I gotta use 2 fingers. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So this is my weapon of choice. On this side we have the Corsair 8100i V2 liquid CPU cooler. On the bottom of that, right here, we have the Corsair RM650X power supply. On this side we have the Corsair SP120 RGB fan. I'll explain in a bit why I need a standalone fan. Over here we have the Core i7 8700 8th gen processor chip. On the bottom of these two things right here, we have the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1070 Super Clocked Black Edition. Right here we have the Samsung 860 EVO SSD. And I was going to install the 16 gigs ballistic memory from Micron, but I've actually found G.Skill 16 gig memory with RGB for the same price, so I'm gonna send this back, and the G.Skill should be coming tomorrow. Now, the heart of this system, ROG Maximus X Hero from Asus, and for my case, which is too big to fit on this table with everything, I'm using the Corsair 570X. So there you have it, my weapon of choice. Now let's jump right into it and start setting this thing up, because I'm super excited. I just want to get this thing up and running. So first step we're going to do is setting up the motherboard. Now the first thing we're going to be focusing on here is our Core i7 processor. And no, you don't need gloves to do this. I do a lot of technical work for my job, and I'm required to wear gloves, so it's just a force of habit. But you do not need to wear gloves. So here's the chip. Open it up. Now we're just gonna match the arrow. Okay, it's dropped in fine. A little bit of pressure, and chip is locked in. I like how this board looks. It has a sweet metallic look to it. Okay, so let's install the RAM. You can see here it says DIMM A1 and then DIMM B1. So pair RAM is gonna go here and then here and then here and then here. I know I said I wasn't gonna use the Ballistic Sports, but I'm gonna go ahead and use it. So there's 4 stick of RAM here. Okay, so all the RAM is installed, and I think that about does it for setting up the motherboard. So now that we got the motherboard out the way, let's go ahead and open up this case. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I am removing the left and the right panel so we get full access inside the case. You do have to be careful. This is the side that you are going to install the motherboard and everything on. I'm also keeping the plastic wrap on the glass until the computer is completely finished. And I'm also going to remove the top of the glass because I do have a radiator I need to install for the liquid cooler. Okay, first thing is first, let's install the motherboard. I guess I should have left the computer down. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and place the board down. Okay, now that we have the motherboard in, let's go ahead and tighten it down with the screws. Alright, so now our next step is to install the liquid cooler. Alright, CPU cooler is installed. Let's go ahead and clean up the wires. Water cooler is installed. Everything is complete. I gotta wire the top control panel into the motherboard. Now we're going to install the power supply. Alright, now we're going to power everything by plugging the power supply into the motherboard and so on. Alright, next we're going to install the graphics card. So graphic card is in. Now we're going to install the SSD hard drive. Beginning in this video, I mentioned that I purchased the SP120 RGB single fan, and I said I would explain why I purchased it. Well, this case doesn't come with an exhaust fan. It comes with 3 fans in the front inlet, but it doesn't have an exhaust. So you have to buy one separately and install it yourself. The reason why they leave this with no fan is because if you have 2 options of using a single fan radiator for the CPU, or you can use the top for a dual fan. We're almost done with the build. What I'm going to do now is just turn it around and do some cable management in the back. Cable management is complete. Clear up this desk, get a monitor, and put this computer through its first test. Everything is plugged in. You can see inside the case is already starting to come alive. It looks pretty cool. It's not on yet, but let's go ahead and power it on. Second day, and the build is finally complete. I mean, it's not complete. There's still some things that can be tweaked to make better, but I mean, for a machine or a Hackintosh that's up and running, I'd say that it's ready for prime time, ready for some video editing and whatnot, content creation. It runs slick. It's very, very smooth. Once everything gets settled and you install the correct kexts, this thing is awesome. It's a powerhouse. So as you can see, everything is read for the most part. It's reading at 3.7 gigahertz. Reads 24 gig. That's reading like it should. Oh, and by the way, I did get my G.Skill LED RAM, and it's installed right here. Pretty slick looking. I like it. It's the Trident G.Skill. However, it's not going to work with the Asus Motherboard's LED, because you need a Windows to install the drivers and configure the lights to sync up and work in harmony. It's not going to work on a Hackintosh, so that's why all the lights are out of place. But I am going to dual boot this Hackintosh, and I'm going to install Windows 10 on an SSD and put it in this PC so I can use Windows 2. We're finally done with this project. It roughly took about 50 hours to complete, but I made it. I did it. It's all done. Now there are a couple of more tweaks I can do to make it perfect, but when you're dealing with computers, working is more than perfect. And what we have is a fully fledged working Apple clone computer. And I've run 2 benchmark tests to prove that my GPU, CPU, and memory are all functioning as intended. Now with the Hackintosh, I got a single core score of 5983. Compare that to the 27-inch mid-2017 iMac, which has a single core score of 5677. We can take it a step further and throw in the iMac Pro late 2017, which had a single core score of 5291. So far, the Hackintosh sits on top. Now for multi-core, the Hackintosh got a score of 26921, the 27-inch iMac got a score of 19332, and the iMac Pro got a score of 35490, thanks to its Intel Xeon chip, which has 10 cores. That's 4 more cores than the 27-inch iMac and the Hackintosh, which both have only 6 cores. Even with all that, the Hackintosh still kicks ass compared to the 27-inch iMac. Running Unigen's Valley benchmark tests, we got about 100 frames per second consistently, all thanks to the EVGA GTX 1070 chip. This is not bad for a computer that costs the least out of the 3. The 27-inch iMac with the same specs as my Hackintosh comes in at $3,299. The iMac Pro starts at $5,000. And the Hackintosh cost a whopping, drumroll please, $1,761.50, and that's paying full price for everything. No deals, no favors, everything was purchased through Amazon at full price. But that's a whopping $1,537.85 savings against a 27-inch iMac. Not too shabby at all. Building a PC from scratch in general is not hard at all. It's super simple. What makes this project challenging isn't the building, but rather the software side of things, and that's loading macOS and getting it to see all of your peripherals. This is a challenge that requires patience, a lot of research, and a good deal of common sense. Like for example, I got the GPU and sound working about 2 hours after installing High Sierra. Those are the 2 main things you want working right away. I got an alert to update the Clover bootloader, and I did just that. After the update, my Hackintosh stopped booting into Mac. I did a lot of research and found out that a very important driver called OSX OptioFix 3DRV-64, which is required in order for your Macintosh to boot into Mac OS, was deleted by the new Clover bootloader. Apart from that, guides that walk you through fixing the issue were long and tedious because they wanted you to use Clover Terminal. Using some common sense, I realized that I could use macOS High Sierra installation USB drive, which was created using Unibeast and has Clover integrated into it, to boot into my macOS drive. From there, I mounted the EFI partition, copied the driver from my Clover bootloader on my High Sierra flash drive, and voila, everything worked afterwards. But High Sierra went back to using its integrated graphic driver instead of the NVIDIA WebDriver I installed. Again, had to use common sense because I did a lot of research and couldn't find jack squat on this issue. I went looking around the config plist on my EFI to see if I could maybe see a setting that got changed, and sure enough, I found an option to inject NVIDIA selected. Also selected was the NVIDIA WebDriver injection. Now 2 of these same injections can only spell trouble. So I took off the NVIDIA injection and left the NVIDIA WebDriver on. Sure enough, it worked. Again, I had to use common sense because I couldn't find any information specifically for my scenario. And then, the last major issue I had was sleep and wake. The Hackintosh went to sleep, okay, but when you woke it up, the screen remained blank. Only solution I found online was to prevent macOS from putting your Hackintosh to sleep by going into preference. It works, but it's more of a band-aid fix. It's fine with me though because I never put my computers to sleep anyhow. If they're on, it's because I'm rendering a file. If they're not in use, they're off. But once I got past all the software issues, as I said, this build is awesome. Yes, I did dual boot it so I can use Windows 10, and funny enough, High Sierra has proven to be more stable than my Windows 10. My Windows 10 fatally crashed, forcing me to wipe the drive clean and reinstall Windows 10. Bummer. But even with all that, I still spent far less time messing with Windows 10 than I did with High Sierra. And if you're wondering why myself or anyone else put a video on YouTube taking you step by step on loading macOS on your Hackintosh, the answer is simple. It takes far too much time to record every little change we make to fix issues within the macOS. Also, every build is unique. With so many ways to build your own PC, your problems will be completely different from mine. But if you're good with software, tinkering, googling, and common sense, and you want to save some serious cash, I'd recommend building a Hackintosh. And if you're not, you might want to just buy a Mac. Because chances are, if you attempt this, run into issues, and bail on the project, well, you'll just end up with a decked out Windows PC. And there's nothing wrong with that, but if you need and you want just a Mac, and you end up with a Windows PC, you're just going to stress yourself out. Personally, if I wasn't able to get High Sierra up and running on my build, I had a backup plan to just use Windows 10. Now, if you do want to build your own Hackintosh, be sure to check out Tony Mac x86. Again, that's Tony Mac x86. That is the place to be for tutorials and tips on building a Hackintosh. Everyone goes there. Everyone. I mean everyone. Thanks for watching this video. Hope you found it helpful. Give me a thumbs up if you did. Check out my other videos if you like DIY, things. And again, I will see you on the next one.